Perfect. Well, welcome to the chat with the GP. In fact, you've got two GPs today. Um, Myself, Dr. William Bird. Some of you have seen me before doing this. And normally the format is I've chosen a subject, we've gone through it with some slides, try to cram in all that information in 10 minutes. Sometimes it's been a real struggle. Sometimes it's been just a massive topic like when we were doing ultra processed food, and sometimes very specific about temperatures. But today, I'm really pleased to introduce Bernie Choi, who is probably one of my greatest colleagues who's been doing general practice for over 28 years, huge experience. And he's also done psychotherapy. He trains other GPs as well, so he really knows what he's talking about. Together, I think we've got about over 65 years of experience. So that sounds really scary. But we're going to talk about stomach upsets, basically. And I think the big problem that people have with stomach upsets is, first of all, particularly children, they're worried that their child is going to get ill and they're going to get dehydrated and other problems. And then for an adult, it's the worry about what do I do when I've got this stomach upset? Am I infectious? Will I be able to deal with it? And is there something there I should be looking out for that's really serious and I'm missing something? And particularly as we get older, that becomes obviously more apparent. So Bernie's going to talk through everything about stomach upsets. I'm going to prompt with a few questions that you might be wanting to ask, and then we'll hopefully wrap up over the 12 minutes of doing adults and children, infections and non-infections, and hopefully you'll have a complete view on stomach upsets that you didn't know beforehand. So Bernie, over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, William, and good afternoon to you all. So today I'm going to be talking about gastroenteritis or tummy upsets, starting off with adults, and then we'll talk about children and a little bit of Q&A at the end. So gastroenteritis, what is that? Well, it's actually, as the word says, it's inflammation of the bowel, which can be caused by infective causes and inflammatory causes. And when the bowel is insulted, upset, what it wants to do is get rid of the insult and the upset. And hence, you'll either get top-end vomiting and or bottom-end action diarrhea. Okay. And medically, we define diarrhea as actually liquid stools, which are like coming out of the tap, like it's literally liquid. If it's soft, that's not classically diarrhea. So, talking about viral gastroenteritis, first of all, that's the most common form of gastroenteritis we encounter in general practice, and particularly it's in the winter months it occurs. They often call it, viral winter bug or gastric flu. And why is that? And how do you know if you are having a viral gastroenteritis as opposed to something else? Well, the telltale signs is that you're likely to have some other viral type symptoms. Now, a viral infection is a systemic illness which can affect us from any part of our bodies from head to toe. So you may be feeling a little bit achy, tired, a headache, earache, sore throat, bit of a cough, sniffly nose. So those are the telltale signs that you think, I just feel a bit under the weather, and you know what, I'm getting a bit of runny poo and maybe a bit of vomiting. So with that, you don't need to panic. And what can you do for yourself? Well, the key thing is keeping hydrated. So as a rough rule of thumb, we'd say as long as you have 3 or more urine, you're weeing out 3 or more times in a day, then you're not by definition dehydrated. If you're only urinating once a day or 0, then clearly you are dehydrated. What kind of fluids do you want? Well, water is very good, but in actual fact, you don't want just water, but actually water with some sugar is actually more effective. Because if you remember back to your biology, chemistry, physics days, there's this condition called co-transport. So rather than just one water molecule trying to be absorbed, your body struggles with it. But with every sugar molecule, glucose molecule, your body absorbs a water molecule with it. So it's actually much more effective. So which is why we say actually having some water with some sugar, things like squashes, fruit juices, or these or rehydration solutions, they're very good because they contain sugar. So excuse me, I've got dry mouth. So that's treatment for that. And then obviously with regards to a viral infection, it's good to have lots of vitamin C's. So what we call, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat.
That's okay, carry on, that's okay, yeah. That happens.
And I'm actually getting over a bit of a viral infection myself. So I'm on my vitamin C's, what we call rainbow colored fruit and vegetables, packed full of vitamin C. So any fruit and vegetables, which is red, blue, green, orange, yellow, purple, have lots of that. That's really good. And as I say, fluids, hydration. So personally, I make myself a little elixir with either honey and spoon of honey, squeeze a fresh lemon juice, and then put that in some hot water. Or if you want to go Asian, actually some fresh ginger water is actually very good. Boil up some ginger for about 10 minutes, let it cool down a bit, spoon of honey, squeeze of fresh lemon juice, pinch of salt, drink that little and often. Fabulous. Okay, so that's the viral gastroenteritis. Then we go into infective causes. With infective causes, we could subcategorize them into two categories. One being food poisoning. So the obvious clue to that is you had a takeaway, and within half an hour of eating it or an hour, you get viral. You get vomiting and or diarrhea, and that's obviously a telltale sign. So in terms of what to do, well, similar kind of things, keep yourself hydrated. And the other thing is that if, in actual fact, if you have had, excuse me, my throat is really playing up, this is not good.
I said this is the actual reason why when it's live, it's proving that this is a live recording, and we're not actually getting all the best parts, we're just getting all the rough ends as well. So
yes,
Bernie, do carry on.
Yes, I'm not a bot, I'm a genuine human being.
A real
Right.
human being.
With the infective cause, yes, keep yourself hydrated and fluids little and often. If it is obviously you suspect it is some dodgy food which you've eaten from a restaurant, takeaway, supermarket, it may be worthwhile actually getting a sample of your stools sent by a GP for analysis, because if there is an infective cause, you may need to take some antibiotics for that. And also there's a responsibility to report that to public health. So your doctor will actually do that. So that's actually quite an important point. And then the other part is come back to if you go traveling abroad, then obviously you can pick up infections abroad, and they're more likely to be causes which can be treated and need to be treated with antibiotics. So just coming a little bit back to what we're talking about just now, if it's a viral cause, as I'm sure you're aware, antibiotics do not work for a virus, so no need to take it. But when you're abroad, you can get things like salmonella, shigella, giardia, other infective causes, and those do need antibiotics. But the only way you can tell what that is to get a stool sample sent off for analysis. So that's worthwhile. If you have been abroad, do get a sample of your stool sent off via your GP. And they
Bernie, just on that, then, when people go abroad, often particularly to India or to the Far East, they often feel that their stomach's changed, and because it's so. Are we talking about that? What's the difference between just a bit of an upset tummy because the daily belly, as it was used to be called, and that something which is more serious?
I think two things. One is if it's persisting. So most quite common tummy bugs, they last 24, 48 hours. And really within about day 3 or 4, it should be cleared out of the system. So if that's the case, it's self-limiting, no problem. I don't think you need to do anything about it. In actual fact, remember, antibiotics were created less than 100 years ago, and most of us got better from infections without need for antibiotics. So don't panic, okay? But having said that, though, if you do have blood in your stools, I'd be a lot more concerned about that. And also, if you have other symptoms like a high fever, getting quite dehydrated, as we talked about, then I think we would be more concerned about that. And obviously, a prolonged diarrhea infection. So we always say, as a rough rule of thumb, if you have had diarrhea for more than 7 days, definitely get a sample of your stool sent off for analysis by your GP. Is that okay, William? And then we'll move on.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's fine. I think it's just knowing, because obviously loads of people get upsets on there, and it's sometimes just a change of food and the change of bacteria that's coming through that food. And people are worried that they should be taking antibiotics, but I think you've made it very clear that it's 7 days, it's got blood, you've got a fever, you're unwell. It's those are the things to be looking out for.
So it's not just the diarrhea and vomiting, but what else is going on? Tummy pain, fever, that kind of thing you need to get worried about. Okay, so then we talk about inflammatory causes. This is a little bit more trickier, but in actual fact, the telltale key signs are if you have blood in your diarrhea or if you have mucus, then that suggests it may be something like what they call Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. And if that's the case, definitely you should see a GP about that, because then they'll need to have a blood test on you.
So that's the important thing. If you've got, so we just said about blood and mucus can be from an infection, but this is going on and off for a long time, is it? This is where if you've if you've got Crohn's arthritis, this wouldn't just come up over 7 days, would it? Or just this would be something perhaps periodic you're getting, or perhaps it's getting a bit worse. How would you help someone to differentiate whether this is just perhaps a couple of infections they've had, or this is something more worrying that they've got, obviously, with inflammatory bowel disease?
I think one is there may well be a family history, so what we call autoimmune diseases. So you may have uncle, aunt, father, grandfather, who said, they had this thing called rheumatoid arthritis or Crohn's, ulcerative colitis. Then that raises our index of suspicion. But the other thing is that I think if you've got mucus and blood in your stools, that would be concerning to me, because if you've got blood in your stools, that could just simply be an infected cause, or if you've got piles, fissures, that kind of stuff, you don't get you don't get mucus. But if you get that mucus plus blood, and it keeps coming back now and again, then I'd be a lot more concerned. Then I think you'll see a GP. But don't panic.
Weight loss as well, weight loss being another problem.
And that's probably if it's going to be quite severe. Yeah. But you'd know about it because you'd have prolonged episodes of bloody diarrhea, and people don't get episodic bloody diarrhea, particularly with mucus. You need to be asking questions and need to get that checked out. So definitely see a GP about that. But just to reassure you, even if you had that, there are some very good effective treatments out there. So don't hesitate to see a GP about it. Nobody should get upset with you for seeing them about that symptom. I was going to say shouldn't poo-poo that, but anyway, there you go.
Oh dear.
Right.
Oh no, everyone seems to have gone now.
Okay, all right, okay. And then moving on to children. Well, at one level, all I've said just now applies to children. And what's the nuance about children? Well, obviously, because they're a lot smaller, they have less resilience and less capacity to deal with diarrhea and vomiting. They will go off quite quickly. So I think the key thing with children is to say, well, how are they in terms of not just the diarrhea and vomiting, how are they systemically? So I would say to parents is, how are they alert, or are they kind of floppy and drowsy? If they wake up half an hour, then kind of take a little bit of feed, go back to sleep, wake up half an hour, go back to sleep, that's fine. But if, let's say, they normally wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, try to give them some food or drink, they're just not interested in it, through to about 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, still not really taking anything, not interacting, that would concern me. And I think I'd consider to be a floppy, drowsy child. I want to see them. So that's the first thing in terms of alertness. Secondly, is their breathing. If they are dehydrated, they're likely to be breathing quite rapidly, kind of not just our normal breathing, but you'd see them kind of like gasping and not able to take full breaths and not even talking full sentences, depending on what age they are. And so I want to see them about that. And then thirdly, again, about hydration status. So how many urine or wet nappies in young children are they having? If they're having 3 or more wet nappies in 24 hours, I think they're fine. But 0 or 1 wet nappy, that would concern me. And same again, if they have blood in their stools, I'd be more concerned. But if it's just loose stools, then I think it's probably going to be a winter bug, and don't worry about it too much.
So I think with the dehydration, and that's one of the things we know is probably the best way of discriminating whether someone, that drowsiness and that dehydration are two really, really go hand in hand. So if you've got nappies which are, well, let's say the child is out of nappies, they're 4 or 5 and they've got this, how can you tell? Can you tell by the urine as well, or can you just watch them how much they're drinking?
Yeah, I think obviously if it's very concentrated urine, which will be dark in colour, that suggests that they're more getting a little bit dehydrated. But again, I think I always say take the bigger picture. So they're all clues. So I think if they're urinating 3 or more times in 24 hours, I don't get so worried about it. But again, it has to be taken in the bigger picture. Even if they're weeing out 3 times a day, but they're not really interacting, they seem to be breathing a little bit faster, I'd be more concerned. Whereas a child who actually is, peeing out, 5 times a day, but again, they should be probably alert, breathing, interacting, smiling a little bit more. Yeah, that's fine. I wouldn't worry about that. So, and also, I think parents are very sensible. They get that gut feeling. It's like my child seems to be okay, still having wet nappies, has this diarrhea and vomiting. I wouldn't be too worried. But if the parent says to me, do you know what, my child just doesn't seem to be quite normal. I don't know, just get that unhappy feeling. That to me is something I need to sit up and listen to, and I'd want to see that child.
Bernie, thanks very much indeed. So really, vomiting diarrhea is a completely natural reaction for the body to try and get rid of the inflammation or the infection. So don't worry if your child has vomited or has diarrhea, that's completely normal. But you've made it very clear from the adult point of view, if it's gone on for more than 7 days, if there's blood, if you're feeling really unwell with it, if there's mucus as well, and obviously for children, that key thing of alertness and the dehydration, nappies easier to identify compared to post nappies, but still they're the real key things. So great majority of these things can be left alone and they'll get better.
Absolutely.
But we do want to see those ones where you've highlighted.
Definitely.
Brilliant. Well, look, you've been brilliant, really clear as you always are, and that's why I always like to hear you. And I'm kind of so we work together, and I go into Bernie. I say, "Oh, I'm not quite sure about this or how to put it," and you make it always so clear. So thanks so much for coming on. We are going to be doing another one on back pain next Wednesday, so that'll be another format. We'll do it like this, and I hope you can join us. Thanks so much for all of you taking your time out. We've gone over a little bit. I think that's been okay. I found it really fascinating to listen to you, Bernie, and thanks so much for your time and for everyone who's come to listen to us today. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, William, and thank you all for joining in with us today. Cheerio.
Bye-bye.